Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Carlton People. Today you're going to meet Luke, but I think a lot of you have seen Luke on the fan cams, been writing for the website this year. So it's time to put everything together and get a Carlton People episode recorded. Luke, what is up, my friend?
Not much, Tez, but very happy to be here today on Carlton People. Feels like a long time coming.
This is it, mate. This is your life. This is the story of you.
But yeah, can't wait to get into it.
Yeah.
Throw them at me, Tez. I'm ready.
All right. Let's start this way. Uh, How? What's your story? How did you become a Carlton supporter? What's the actual beginning?
So when we booked this recording, and I was actually doing a bit of digging because I had to ask Mum. I'm like, why are we Carlton people? Like, living in Victoria because a lot of people won't know, but my background is actually rugby union. I'm a huge union fan. I play union. My rugby club is just down the road from me in Victoria as well. I was born in Hong Kong, but my dad grew up in Bomaderry, New South Wales. And obviously, not a lot of Carlton connection there. But at the same time, my mum just happened to be from Geelong, but she was a Carlton supporter and said, I've got 5 children. I need them to have some connection back to Australia. So you're going to be watching all the Carlton games in any way possible if we're watching them at 12 o'clock in Hong Kong time on replays on Channel 7 or a week later on Run Back as well. But thankfully, we were able to move back to Australia, and that's when the love just started because obviously union isn't as big in Victoria as probably anywhere else north of the world. I just don't know what it is, but that's a conversation for another day. But I want to get this right. So I did look up my Carlton lineage. So my papa or my grandfather, he grew up in Fawkner, just near Coburg. So Carlton Heartland, basically.
Yes, sir.
And his father, Norman, was a Carlton supporter, and his father before him. And Norman O'Kane, so my great grandfather, was a founding committee member of the Carltonians back in the 1960s, which are obviously still around today as the coterie and basically that social business networking, conduit for the club as well. But back in the day, there was no salary cap. So, and at the time, it was our longest premiership drought from 1947 into the 60s as well. So that sort of really bolstered the club into getting, donors that were able to pay for players like, say Ron Barassi as well, and just really forged that, other communal aspect for people who had different hobbies outside of the club. But, it was that one sort of focal point to bring people back to Icon Park. And whether you're, someone who could probably afford for a player like a Barassi or someone who just knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy as well, that's where everyone was welcome. And I find it interesting now in the midst of our now longest premiership drought now, that we have a platform like Blue Abroad where we can bring people from all different shapes and sizes, but we still have that one love, and that's the Carlton Football Club.
Wow.
Yes, sorry, I
I
was a
did
bit
not.
rambly there.
No, not. Don't be sorry at all. Uh, taken aback by that. It's a really cool history. Firstly, your mother has done God's work.
Oh, she's a
um,
superhero as well.
yeah.
5 children, and they're all mentally unstable blue bagger supporters.
That was the first part that grabbed me, and then the second part, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew you were born in Hong Kong. I knew that there was a rugby union link for you, and that's kind of your game, one of your close to your heart. Um, I wasn't aware of the link back to the coterie, and so that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, I did have an inkling of that, but I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know if it was, back a few generations or if there was a few second cousins mixed into it. But no, there's the direct line back to the foundations of a club that was striving to get back on the premiership board after, it's probably a 13-year or 15-year drought at that point as well when the coterie was formed as well. And
Yeah, right.
to be on the sort of back end of that now where we're looking to add number 17. Yeah, it's pretty surreal now that I think about
Yeah,
it.
right. What's your earliest memory of watching Carlton or going to Carlton games, or like how far back does your memory go?
So I was lucky because obviously my granddad, who I was just speaking very highly about, he was very keen to get his new, 4 or 5 grandchildren all to the football while he could. And my first Carlton game, I remember this very vividly, was against Essendon, and pretty sure it was back in 2011. But a lot of people remember that game for the Andrew Walker Skywalker mark as well. And I was sitting level 2, so didn't have the best shot, but I was in the forward pocket just on the other side of the ground, and I just that raw like for because I obviously never went to a finals match back then when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. So to just have a little moment like that as my sort of first inkling of like what a Carlton crowd could sound like, especially at Marvel Stadium or Etihad Stadium back in the day as well. And yeah, that was just surreal, and that stuck with me for ages.
I love that. I like to think that there's 2 stages to becoming a Carlton person. There's your story with your family and whether it's, you know, mum, dad, uncle, auntie, the way you actually become a supporter, and then there's the first time you feel it in the crowd. And that's why I asked the question, like, what's the first memory you have of, like, going to a game? Because I think you can't truly be a Carlton person unless you've felt it in the crowd, in person.
Not at all. And like, think of today. We love playing at Marvel just because it reverberates now.
Mm,
For so many years, we've had that roof open with oh my God, that sun down the pocket as well. I mean, those are some sobering afternoons as a
yes,
little
indeed.
11-year-old going there. But now it's just it's just like this orchestra now. It's
Yep.
incredible how that's evolved over the years. But nothing beats the G, especially. I remember probably one of my other famous memories was Carlton Collingwood, 2012 as well. Probably when we were, I'm sure you've probably explained it on the channel many times as well. We were up and about, probably sitting top 4 of the ladder by that stage in the early rounds as well. And but yeah, just nothing could have compared to something like that. Apart from obviously my first experience at Marvel as well.
So 2011, then obviously 2012 is a pretty profound time as well. Probably more so the start than anything else. Um, h- how did you go dealing with the rest of it? I mean, obviously we'll get to 23 and we eventually do play finals football and we win finals, but from that period from, 2012 after round 3 when it kind of turns a bit sour, up until all the way through to, end of 23, or let's say halfway through 23, like, how do you deal with what was going on?
Well, thankfully, I got a bit older. I got a
Yep.
bit more mature and a bit more, I'm sure my mum would say, a bit more less tears going into games or just talking about it as well. And I think it got to about when we won the wooden spoon for the first time in 2015, and then we had a few like sort of stale years like 2016, 2017, and then obviously 2018 winning our next wooden spoon. There was this sort of feeling like I just got really angry going to the games as well, like because I hated always just hearing non-Carlton people talk about Carlton, and obviously still being in school at the time as well, like get a bit of jiffa jaffa from everyone, like throwing elbows and whatnot, and you can't really talk about like these up and comers like a Jacob Wiedering who people were thinking, why were you taking an intercept defender at pick 1? And I tried to explain to them, and they weren't having a bar of it because there wasn't really like a mature kind of audience that they were really invested into that football to say like, yeah, no, you're right, you're going to come. But really back then, like I'm sure a lot of young blue baggers would have that same sentiment. Like it was brutal, like most of the time, like because you couldn't stay up to watch Footy Classified or the Footy Show, so most of what you heard was just like word of mouth. If you weren't bothered to read the paper when you were 15, 14, like you would really just think like, shit, this is what I've just been locked into, and probably just defending nothing at this
Yeah.
rate. And then
Yeah, the thing.
I think yeah.
No, go on.
Sorry, and then I think 2019 rolled around, and obviously there's a lot of yeah, great memories from that. I actually did have something saved from that because my mum calls me a hoarder, but I've got this little excerpt from 2019 win in Easter. It was against the Bulldogs, and I think the headline was Brendan Bolton saying "Happy Easter," and we won against the Bulldogs by about 57 points that day. And yeah, I just thought like, look at that, 267 days without a win and
Wow.
1,051 days since the Baggers scored 100 points. And that was in 2019. And I think that was like really the time where I started like, becoming a bit like I had a bit more like I became a strong debater for the Carlton Football Club. Like I had my arguments put out. I had my little cheat sheet up there. Like I knew it was who we were targeting in the off season, and there was really starting this to get this vibe that like there was something worth talking about the Carlton Football Club as well, and obviously that like seeded into 2020 and 2021, but very disappointing seasons. To say the least. But at the same time, like, that really just fostered, just greater conversation, which I was longing for so long. Like I could actually talk about my club without getting, beat into the ground by so many of my mates as well. But yeah, tough times. So
Yeah. Look, I like to think that it's going to hold you in good stead. It prepares you for life. I caught I mean, I was 8 when we played in the 99 prelim and the granny. So like I kind of remember it, but like not really. I remember it happening. I wasn't at the game. Probably watched it on tape. I probably watched it live. I don't remember watching it live. It didn't grab me. It wasn't until 2005, 6 onwards that it really grabbed me. And so I'd like to say that, our generations, we are doing it the right way. We aren't just stepping into a club that's just winning because and we don't know what it's like on the other side. Like we're starting off bad and having to really earn the right to be confident and enjoy it. And I think it's gonna, in the end, I mean, I don't know. I'll get your thoughts. In the end, I'd like to think it's going to draw us closer to the club once they become successful again. So, as we get to 23, bit more pain halfway through the year. It's looking like worse than ever before, and then finally we start to see something that resembles what we used to think would be worth it. So, how did you deal with 23 and how it all came about?
yeah, well, it there was a lot of time. Like it's funny how you say, "And you're right." I felt like we were a bit spoiled, for most of the time as well. Even those first 4 rounds where we weren't playing the best footy we possibly could have. I think we were just being spoiled of the fact that we were in these conversations about, like what the rest of the year was going to look like or what the future was going to look like, and I just felt a bit, out of place with that. And, it was hard to sort of really talk about that period as well. And I sort of, I s- it is hard to say now, like, and there'll be a lot of people throwing the pitchfork at me, but there's a bit more to talk about, when we're down in the dumps and there's not really like an end of the light at the end of the tunnel as well. Like there's just something about, being in that dark patch as well where, the real like support really flourishes. I mean, I know there's a lot of, taking people saying like this person should be sacked or this person should be delisted as well. And, it can really harm a lot of players and a lot of people internally within our club. But I've never felt more like a Blues supporter when we've been down in the dumps versus like when we've been winning as well. So it was very very interesting feeling 2023 as well. And then yeah, but it was, and so I just wanted to sort of like culminate my thoughts like during the season. And I thought there's got to be some kind of outlet to do it. And luckily, one day I just said to myself, maybe I'll just send an email to this guy Terry, who I've been watching for a few months already.
Still remember that. We caught up for a beer.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe we can touch on that. You wanna work in that sports media space. Give us some context around that. What is it that draws you to sports media and how has it changed for you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange like start to the year, like sort of leveling with the strange start with Carlton at the same time. Like I just finished year 12, and I wanted to do anything media related. Whether that be, I loved writing, I loved my English, and I loved just being, talking and having conversations, around people centric stories and narratives as well. And that necessarily wasn't always in sports as well. That I loved talking, a lot of communal stories, a lot of politics, a lot of agriculture as well. That was something that was, really passionate about at the same time, whether that be communicated through, print, video, or even like through a blog as well. Like that was something I knew I wanted to do. And, at the time, like uni was the pathway. Like I said, all my friends are going to uni, I might as well go. And then I was sitting like in a few lectures, and I just felt a bit stuck. Like there wasn't anywhere where I could sort of, branch out and, have different conversations instead of like, sort of talking about it and theorizing about it and then having to explain that theorizing stuff, part of it. And then I just said, you know what, I'm just going to go get some experience while I can. So when I got a few internships, did the age for a couple months towards the start of the year, went back in the middle of the year as well, and just starting up a new internship at an advertising firm as well, which links to my full-time job. But at that start of the year, there was there's a lot of uncertainty around what I was passionate about and what I was able to talk about. So I stuck to my guns. I knew I loved talking about Carlton. I knew I loved being in that space. I know sports media, for anyone who's trying to get into it, it's a very hard space because there's, obviously they hire a lot of past athletes who are great with people, but, they're not going into as much effort researching as some of these younger, hungrier people, in my opinion, are going to. But yeah, so it was a bit scary, but I just needed, that little landing point where I could actually get some reference and, create my folio. And luckily, the kind people at Blue Abroad got back to me, and they said, yeah, we'll give you a platform to sort of just give you that space to sort of, say not only like, how Carlton was doing, but sort of how you're feeling as well, because it's a very unique space when you're talking to very like-minded people as well, instead of having to
Yeah.
create something for a specific audience as well.
It's a good point. Yeah, and I like the dynamics changed so much. When I was coming out of high school, it was just all right. What am I going to do with my life? It's like all right, we'll pick the best job that's going to set you up the best for success and make the most money and help you eventually provide for a family. And for me, it was being a lawyer. That was a big deal, and I actually loved legal studies as a subject, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know that I had options like what the world does now. Like the internet had kind of just started, social media had just started, but it wasn't it wasn't quite mature enough where you could see a pathway for um, a business or a job or a life. And so, I think when I remember when I first met you, and like you just reminded me so much of me and what I was thinking, because I'm like, go pick the best job. And it's like, well, then there's like that notion of, oh, well, you should do something that you enjoy. And I remember being like scoffed at when I went for interviews to get into the sports world, and people were like, oh, you can't, the one thing you shouldn't say about a sports job is that you're passionate about it. And I always found that to be so weird, because it's like, no, that's why I want to work in this world, because I actually care about it. And then to go even deeper, like, to have opportunities now just to write and express. For you, I'm sure, like, I mean, you were writing for the website when we were doing bad and we were doing good. And I think you just touched on something important there. Like, you were writing true to what you felt. Like, I never really told you don't say this or don't say that. It was more, you're free because
Could you
I know
imagine?
you're, yeah, I know. But, like, I know you care so much about the subject matter, so I just knew you would enjoy doing it no matter what you were writing. And I think there's something to be said for the way you went about it for other people who are in your position. Like, get out there and ask some questions, catch up for a coffee and meet someone. You never know what's gonna happen.
It's incredible because, sort of springboarding off our conversation as well, I think I've met so many interesting people this year, and a lot of them have been through Carlton as well and through Blue Abroad. But, just always asking questions and, finding people like, I'm working full time simply because I just reached out to someone and said, can we grab a coffee as well, because people love conversations. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what makes you employable. And to sort of stray off a bit of the Carlton side of things, I haven't actually told you, but I am doing law next year
Is
as
that
well. And
right?
yeah, yeah, because I just said, like, at some point I'm probably going to need a piece of paper with my name on it, and I just love my writing, and I know, and that wasn't really an option for me after year 12, but they looked at my folio, and this is something for if there's any young blue baggers watching who needs a bit of business advice from the coterie. They can. So they literally looked at my folio from what I did this year, like what I was doing with myself, what I was working towards, and a large portion of that I, very proudly put at the top was Blue Abroad, even though I had all these other internships that I could have filed in, like the age looked very juicy as well. They said, you know what, we can see your writing and your work ethic. You didn't get the score in year 12 to do something like this, but how would you like to do law at Monash? And I
Mm,
said to them, like, they came back, and I was just absolutely dumbfounded, because I never thought that experience would triumph over, just a few select years in your life as well. But at the same time, I was probably stupid to think something like that. Of course, experience trumps triumphs. But, if there's anyone, looking to take a different avenue, or, you're down in the dumps and you don't know where to go, just call up someone and have a coffee, because you'll never know what will happen.
no, that's a good point. I think doing something is always better than nothing, and I think a lot of the time people will not do something because they don't know whether it's gonna pay off in the immediate term. It's hard to do something in hope that one day it'll pay you back, and, that is something I think with you that I saw straight away, like, you were willing to do something, not because you wanted, like, an instant payback, but you knew it would you had this ability to know something would come long term. So, that's it. I mean, that's great. It's good to see. I hope that
I've been a
we
Carlton
continue to see
supporter.
you.
Been
Yeah.
I've been a Carlton
True.
supporter long enough,
Living
Terry,
in
to
hope.
know that hope. It'll drive you mental. There's hope somewhere along the line as well.
You're
And
forced to look to the
just
future.
quickly,
I
like,
like that.
yeah, but, like, just quickly, like, the response that I got from those articles as well, like, I thought straight up I had to write for a specific audience. Like, I was a bit jittery as well, like, when you first tasked me to do a season preview, but then I had people comment back saying, "I love the originality. I love
Yeah.
the bit of, comments that you give at the end," and that's sort of how my writing formed. And as I grew an audience, like, I felt, just more connected, and my writing was a bit more fluid compared to, the stuff that I did to try and impress more people. So, but that's just a testament to this awesome, awesome community that
Right.
at Blue
Yeah,
Abroad.
no, I think it's important it is important to stay true to yourself, with anything that you're doing, and that is I actually believe that's probably why the channel has grown to where it is because, like, there's no, I mean, there's certain things we don't say. We basically it's just use your brain and don't be an idiot and don't be toxic. That's really the only rule. But like, it's not like it. What makes this what it is? It's real Carlton people. They're real people with real issues and real thoughts, and who really care. And they say it how it is, and they say it in a different way. And the authenticity is what I think is the strength of the channel because it's real Carlton people, and um, I think that will hold you in good stead. I think it's easy to get lost at a young age trying to be something that you're not because you don't know who you are yet and you're not comfortable with who you are yet. But hopefully, with what you've done, not only just with the website, but in all your other bits of work, hopefully that holds you in good stead.
Terry, I just can't thank you enough, honestly, for this year.
Hey, it's
I've
all
probably
good.
said it more times than enough. Like,
Yeah, it's all good. It's all
I've
good.
probably been
It's
like
all
a
good.
dog just saying, like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you."
No, it's so fine.
That's
It's
all,
so
yeah, but
fine.
honestly, for everyone who's, bothered to watch the last 24 minutes of this, like, I just can't thank you enough for not only sticking by the Blue Baggers, but, helping me do what I want to do. And I just think there's something very special about this club that is unparalleled to anything like in sports as well. And it's incredible how the Wallabies are doing so shit at the moment, and the Carlton Football Club is on the rise. So I cherish that at the moment, and I'm very thankful that I've kept that lineage up, and I get
Yeah.
to come here and talk today with you as well.
Before I let you go, I've got to bring you back to the team that we see right now. I've got to ask you, which year will we lift up the cup?
I don't think I can say it, Terry.
Yeah, you can.
There's that little schoolboy who knows he's going to get bashed for saying this the next day because he doesn't have his cheat sheet ready with all of his
Yeah, but now
arguments.
you got big brothers that'll come down to the school after school if need be and say a few words, you know?
I've got the coterie. They'll come and
Yes.
just give you. Um, little secret, 2024.
It's gonna happen, isn't it?
I can say I'm unfiltered now, Terry. You've you've done something to me now. Like it's gonna happen, and you know, there's so many teams that could win it. Like there's storylines that say that Brisbane should win it. The storyline saying that Collingwood would go back to back. The storyline saying that the Premiership window is closing for Port, but it sucks because they're in the same league as the Carlton Football Club.
Hilarious, mate. Hilarious. Well, yeah, look, it's been great. It's been great to document this. This will sit in the Carlton algorithm on YouTube forever now. So I look forward to looking back on this when we're old and grey. And thanks again for everything you do for the channel. And mate, we'll see you next year.
Go the fucking Blues.
Go the
Seriously.
Blues.